Coach Jordan. How you doing, sir?
I'm great, Atan. Nice seeing you, man.
Oh, great seeing you too. Thanks for coming on the rematch on Fly TV. You know, it's interesting. And let me tell you the story of why I thought to bring you on. So I still live here in PG County, right? Still live in the same neighborhood I lived back when I was playing with the Wizards. And so I was at Wegmans, and so this nice couple stopped me. They stopped me. They're like, "Hey, I know you. You used to play for the Wizards, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so we were talking and everything. And the guy, he said, he's like, why the Wizards been so sorry for so long? And I was like, I don't know. We were rebuilding. And he was like, we've been rebuilding for 7 years. And I was like, all right. And then he said, so we need a better coach too. We got some great young talent. And he named all the guys that he liked. He's like, but we need some better coaching, don't you think? And I said, so who would you like to see as the coach? And so he said, okay. He said, well, I think, Mark Jackson would be good. He's like, Mark Jackson's been out for a long time. He said he got a raw deal in Golden State, and he should have been coaching a long time ago. I was like, yeah, well, I agree that he would be good. He said, Sam Cassell. He said Sam Cassell's been an assistant for a long time, got some championships. You don't know why he hasn't been able to get a head coaching job. I was like, yeah, no, Sam Cassell will be good. And he said, and your old coach. And I was like, I hope you're not talking about Doug Collins. And he said, no, not no Doug Collins. I'm talking about Eddie Jordan. I was like, oh, yeah, he would be great. And he was like, yeah. He said, so his style of coaching, the offense that he ran would do great in this open offense like system that is now in the NBA. And he said, yeah. And he started all that with the big men doing the dribble handoff and all that stuff. He's like, that started with him. He was like, and that's why you was playing more than Brendan was, because Brendan Haywood, he was just a big old 7-footer. He couldn't do the dribble handoff and make it flow like how you did it. He was like, I watched all that. So I was like, oh, yeah, no, you're right. You're right. He was like, well, how come he ain't coaching no more? How come he ain't? I was like, you know what? That's a good question. So when I texted you
it is a good question.
that night, and that was the reason why I text you. So thanks for coming on. But first, let me ask you then, why haven't you come back and coach? Because I do agree with him. I think you would be a great coach in this modern day era of NBA. And let me say also, you took us to 3 or 4 straight playoffs. And that was the 4 playoffs, right? 4 straight playoffs. And the Wizards hadn't been to the playoffs, before you took us to, since like Chris Webber and Juwan Howard days. So
years.
There was a long gap, and I still think it was messed up how they let you go, and Ernie Grunford. We can talk about all that later. But why haven't you been back to coach in the NBA?
Well, let me just go back to my last year of coaching. My last year of coaching was here in Charlotte, where I am now. I was with the Hornets. I was with them for 1 year, and then Michael Jordan was still the owner and decided to clean house and clean sweep and start over again with his coaching staff and scouts. So I tried diligently to get back in after I was let by the Hornets. I went to all the pre-workout stuff in Chicago, the draft workout stuff in Chicago. I met with a few GMs. I sent out letters. I went to some camps. I went to Popovich's camp in San Antonio. I went to McMillan's camp in Indiana. Went to Westchester up there in New York Knicks camp, and met with some coaches and sat with coaches, and then just I didn't have an agent. I just was doing things on my own because I felt like my last maybe 6 years in the NBA, I really didn't need an agent. I was pretty well known. I was very successful, and GMs, when I left Washington, Philadelphia's GM just came right in and says, "Hey, we really want to talk with you about being our coach the following year," which I did. I went to Philadelphia and was there with the Sixers after I left the Wizards. So I've had a number of, it wasn't like I wasn't trying not to get back in. So a time after about 2 years, about a year and a half, I said, let me get an agent. So I hired Billy King, who was starting out in the agent business, and he was with a group, and I went with them out. I met with them out in Vegas, and we had some get-togethers out there, golf tournament. I met other people under his umbrella. Wes Unseld Jr. was one of them.
Okay.
And so went out there and retained him, my agent, for a year. And really nothing was kicking, nothing was popping. I was making some changes in my personal life and bought a home here in Charlotte. And once I bought my house, I got married,
Okay.
bought a house. Yep, bought a house here. And so nothing really, I just kind of said, you know what, maybe my life is meant to be doing this. And what's funny though, Atan, this
Uh,
is funny. This is gonna be funny for you.
okay.
So when I was after about 2 years and nothing was happening, I said, let's look for a house because we were just permanent, just in a not a permanent situation, my wife and I.
Uh-huh.
And as far as housing, we were looking for a house. I was working at Charlotte, uptown, where the arena is. I was living up there. So once we moved South Charlotte, we were looking for a house. We eventually bought a house 3 years later, after I got let go. I I went to we were looking for a country club to join.
Okay.
So so we didn't like the country clubs at first, so we went and joined a health club, which was Lifetime Fitness,
Okay.
and they call it White Lifetime Fitness South Charlotte. So you'll get a kick out of this.
Okay.
So I'm there, and I'm signing up, and the general manager who was signing both my wife and I up as members says,
Uh,
"Hey, I see your resume. We're losing our hoops trainer. Would you be interested?" I'm like, you know what? I've never done individual training. I've always been a head coach and assistant coach, working with the NBA team. I said, you know what? Let me give this a try. So I was the hoops trainer at Lifetime Fitness for 2 years up until COVID.
oh.
So that was very interesting. But the most interesting part about this
Uh,
is one of your best buddies, Brendan Haywood, is a member at Lifetime Fitness. So
okay.
I would bump into Brendan every once in a while. I bump into Antoine, lives 15 minutes from here,
Good.
and I would see Antoine, and there's across the street from this Lifetime Fitness was Harris Teeter. And we actually lived around the corner from Lifetime Fitness. That's why I said, let's do it. I don't have to go anywhere but a block down the street. I
Uh,
get my basketball in, I can help. So I grew that program uh, from pretty much nothing at the time to overcrowded and too many people wanting to go in. So I was proud of that. But I will bump into Brendan and Antoine at Harris Teeter maybe 3 or 4 times a month. And,
uh,
it was good. Actually, I went and saw Antoine's son play last season,
mhm.
early the past season. He and I sat in the stands and watched his son, who's a senior, play, and
Okay.
his son is a freshman. So he has another son that's a freshman. They sat
Right.
with us, and we just, so it's just like a little cozy little enclave of me, Brendan, and Antoine in the same area, which is weird. But anyway, uh, so let's get back to me not coaching. So once I did the training stuff, I really really loved it. I prepared myself. I had binders of how to run classes
Mhm.
because I would have classes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Um, and 2 classes a day. And then once COVID hit, this is interesting. The gym closed. Well, they don't want to call it a gym. The Lifetime Fitness closed, and
Right.
all the adults, not all, but a lot of adults and kids and college kids and middle school kids wanted me to train them outside the gym. So I would go to people's homes and to parks and just train kids while COVID was going on.
Right.
And college kids mostly, high school kids. So it was pretty intense even after that. So I was busy every day. Someone would call me at 3 o'clock. Can you train me at 7? I would have normal, regular training hours. And interesting that I trained 3 brothers that lived behind Del Carey's house, old house here in
Oh,
we call it Providence Plantation. But
right.
so so it was really, yeah, I know. So
Lord.
it was
Okay.
really, I was busy, I was into it. Um, and we bought the house, and my wife and I got married 3 years ago. And I said,
Okay.
maybe this is, I'm not meant to be a coach anymore, except for helping kids. If someone calls me and say, can you train me or my son next week or this week?" I would say, "Yeah, I would do it." So I had some regular clients up until about a year ago,
Okay.
and that's because I'm in a golf. We joined a golf club, country club, and I'm on some golf teams. So I approach golf a time like when we were teenagers, we approached basketball. Like I go out there and practice. I'm in I'm in matches and I'm in tents and I'm
Yeah.
analyzing my swing and analyzing my card. So I'm into it a lot. Not to say that I'm good, but I'm
Yeah.
competitive. Let's say that.
I mean, and that's cool. I'm glad you enjoying life and enjoying, golf and everything like that. But I still think you would be a great coach. I mean, and this is my thing though. I see other coaches of a lighter hue. Okay, I'll say like that.
Yeah. Yep.
That
Yep.
get opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, and they don't have the resume that you have. And
And they include their sons on their staffs and everything
you
else.
notice that.
I noticed that a lot.
And so I'm just looking at it, and I don't know. I agree with the people who I was speaking to at Wegmans. I haven't heard your name come up or Mark Jackson's name come up when there are different openings, and I feel like I should be hearing your name come up. I think that you have built the resume for you to always be getting interviewed at least when new positions open. And just looking back at everything that and people don't understand everything that you had to deal with when we was with the Wizards. And we can talk
Coming
about
out,
that a little bit
it's
too.
coming out a little bit. It's coming out a little bit as life goes along.
It is, but people don't, and we could definitely there was a lot that you had to deal with, and it didn't take away from the winning. Like we were still going to the playoffs every year. If it wasn't for coming up against a young, LeBron for those 3 years straight, we would have even gone further. But and even those games, they all came down to the wire. Like,
Yes.
he made some magnificent play at the end or something like that. But we were right there, and you built a really strong team that could have really made a lot more noise in the playoffs. But I just don't feel like you get enough credit for it. I don't.
Well, what's interesting is just a couple of things. One, when Michael Jordan was really turning it up his early years with Chicago,
Mhm.
they didn't win until Phil Jackson came in with the system. And that's when they took off, and the system meant a lot. The triangle we're talking about. And I thought our system fit um, our talent. And what was good, though, I always say this. I said, I know I had a whole lot to deal with, or we had a whole lot to deal with inside the ropes. Um, but I always credit you, Antoine, and Karan for your leadership, because you guys' leadership meant more than anything I could do with disciplining anybody or setting rules. I just thought that in the locker room, I always said people. I said Antoine, and Karan were our leaders on that team, and they meant a lot inside that locker room that I could not have done myself, or any coaches would have done. Um, but yeah, we had a system that fit out our culture and our talents. And what was good that because of your leadership, you bought into it. Like Michael had to buy into the triangle. He didn't like it at first. Um, and what's also interesting, Atan, is when I eventually ended up in LA as an assistant, Kobe, I don't know if I told you the story.
Mm-mm.
Kobe Bryant asked Mike Brown, who was the head coach at the time, to interview me as an assistant coach because he loved what we did in with our offense.
Oh.
So yes, so I go out to meet with Kobe when he was the Olympic team. He was trying out for not trying out. He was working out with the Olympic team
Right.
in August in um, in Vegas. And so I go out and meet Kobe, just Kobe, and Mike Brown in his suite in the hotel, and we go over the offense. not everything, but generally the skeleton of the offense, how it worked, this and that. And he turned to Mike Brown. He says, "Hire him now.
Oh
Hire
wow.
him right now." Yeah. He says some other things I don't want to say, but as far as other people on their staff, that
Got you.
he wasn't really, So
Right.
he says, "Hire him now." So Mike Brown says, "Okay, let's make it work." And at the at the time, I was coaching DC Assault.
Oh.
We won a national championship in Milwaukee. But anyway, that was fun. So I come out. Kobe calls me once I was hired and says, "I want you to come out and go through the offense with me, just me and you on the floor." And this
Mm-hmm.
was right before training camp, about 2 weeks before training camp.
Mm-hmm.
And I go out. I meet with Kobe every morning at 5:30, and he wanted to know every position of time. Every position, he wanted to know how you would dribble handoff, how
Mm-hmm.
you would roll and post up and seal. He wanted, and he as at a center. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, and he wanted to know the forward spot. And I said, we know in the offense, forwards could be guards and guards could be forwards. He knew that.
Right.
And so for over a week, we went over all the situations in the offense and we put it in. So at the end of that summer, right before training camp, we get Steve Nash. So
Okay.
it was so Mike Brown felt that the offense wasn't going to fit Steve Nash. I said, Mike, Jason Kidd ran the offense.
Right.
Gilbert Arenas ran the offense.
Right.
Everybody enjoys the offense, but he felt that Nash was so much of a pick and roll guy that he wanted to run half of the offense and half of stuff for Steve Nash. So that didn't mesh so well. So that
Hmm.
was interesting about when we talk about the offense, when you did all the things that you did, and we see it today. We see
Yeah.
it pour out. I mean,
Yep.
Antoine was one of the first, not one of the first, but his role was to slash, post up, and spot up at the three. He was a
Mm-hmm.
four.
Mm-hmm.
Brendan and you yourself would pop up to the elbow at top of the key, and we had five out
Mm-hmm.
and dribble handoff, roll, replace, throw it in,
Mm-hmm.
and play from there. And you see that today, but it's interesting that no one really talks about how it started.
No, it started with you, and even when you were with the Nets,
Mets, yes, Mets.
you were the assistant there to Byron Scott, and he got all the credit for it, but it was your and I'm not trying to start that between you and Byron Scott. I
No,
don't know
I
how you
know, I know. No, Byron is awesome.
yeah, no, he's great coach,
Yeah,
but that
yeah.
was your offense. That
Yeah, but Byron knew of it because he had worked with Pete Carril in Sacramento, and that's where I got it from. I call him the master, Pete Carril, and he
okay.
had a taste of it. But when he came to New Jersey as a head coach, and he hired me as his top assistant, he says, "I want to go with this." He wanted to go with what when he and I were with the Laker turnout series that we used to run with the Lakers. And we
Okay.
did some of that, but our personnel didn't mesh. We had Stephon, Kenyon Martin was a rookie. We had some other pieces that were terrific guys, terrific players, but just didn't fit. And the following year, before in summer league, Byron said, "Hey, let's try the they call it the Princeton. Let's try the Princeton this summer and see how it looked." And we did. And he liked it, and we put it in. But what helped was we got Jason Kidd, and Jason Kidd knew every part of the offense, just like Gilbert. Gilbert today will say, and I've heard him say this, "I know the offense more than coach knows it."
He said- he says a lot of things.
And he does a lot of things. So I said, yeah, okay. And he didn't know more than I did, but he
Right,
knew a lot
right.
of it. He knew a lot of it. He knew how to get his shot,
Yeah,
and which was
yeah,
important for us because
yeah.
he averaged 30.
Right,
And he knew at times when Antoine needed a shot,
right.
and how to get Antoine in his position. So it was good once you learn it, and you guys ran it well, man. It was great. And the thing about it, you said it, the Wizards hadn't gone to the playoffs in 20 years,
Yeah.
but at the same time, did not win a first round playoff series in 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we won that year against Chicago,
Yep.
and in less than a day and a half, went to go see Shaq
I know. I
in,
know.
in Miami. In less than a day and a half,
Yeah. Yeah.
we went on a Friday. We had to play on a Sunday, I think, like noon game or something crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the crazy part about it, it was a close game.
Yeah.
We hung in there. I mean, you battled Shaq and
Yeah.
Brendan battled Shaq. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
And Alonzo Mourning was there too. You know what I mean? But D Wade was on a whole different level. And I kind of remember, did somebody say something about D Wade before or something like that? And then he just went off one game. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember when Deshaun said that LeBron was overrated.
No, that was different. That was
okay. That was different.
That was
okay, all right.
that was when Deshaun was doing this, and then he was he had it. So, he had DC rocking. I'll tell you that though. You know what I mean?
I know. We love that.
But it's interesting. So that playoff series when we played against the Bulls was like the start of a lot of the issues right now with Kwame and Gilbert. And I just did a podcast about it. I had different reporters on, and it was Michael Lee, who was with the Washington Post, John Mitchell, who was with the Washington Times, and it was and Mike Wise, who was with the New York Times, and they were all there around that time because and so I still live here in PG County, and people were stopping me all the time, like, why don't you say something about Gilbert and Kwame? They're going to war with each other. You should say. I was like, why should I say something? This has nothing to do with me. Like,
they wanted you to get involved with them, or just say something on your podcast about.
Well, both, to get involved, to like get them to stop. I was like, why do you think they'll listen to me? Like, why do you think that I'm the person? So we went and spoke about it, but it all came down to that. It started during that time. So there's actually, there's something you could probably help clear up. Because that game, all right, going back to game 3 of that series. So remember the first 2 games, we went down to Chicago and we got smacked. We played poorly. Gilbert and Boog shot terribly. It was not a good game. They smacked us twice. Right. And then the game coming back, I remember because you pulled me to the side. It was like either after a shoot around or after a practice. And you're sitting there talking to me, and you said, listen, I'm going to change things up a little bit this third game. I don't like the way the offense is stagnant a little bit, and it's not moving the way that I want it to move with Brendan playing at the 5. He was like, and I want you to play, and I want you to run the offense the way it's supposed to be ran. And that's what you told. Do you remember that? Yeah, that's what you told. And I was like, all right, Coach, I got you. And so, and then you said, and also, and that this even goes back to what you were saying about, Steve Nash, and that wanted to, the point guard would push the ball down the side of the sideline, and I would do a drag screen to start it off, and then get into the offense immediately. And you was like, and I remember Eddie Curry and Tyson Chandler both having a lot of problems with that because they couldn't decide if they were going to show out on the shooter or go with me. And I was just wide open once I rolled and was getting like 4 or 5 wide open dunks in the first quarter. So that game, I had a good game. You know what I mean? We won. The whole city was on fire. And that's when Gilbert and Kwame's issues started. So I remember sitting there. I was sitting at the locker room because I had all the media people around me. You know what I mean? And I was, holding court. I was like, you got to just stay ready. You got to be ready with, all giving them all the one-liners, right? So then I see the media going back and forth between Kwame and Gilbert. And you know what I mean? And they were going back here, and they went back here, and they went back here. I mean, I don't even know if you knew that this is what was going on.
I didn't know this was going on in the locker room, no.
So Gilbert, saying like, he wants me to pass him the ball. He ain't doing nothing when he get the ball. And Kwame was like, well, he won't pass me the ball. So they just egging it on, right? Well, Gilbert said that you won't pass it. And I was like, so I remember afterwards, I was like, and I talked to some of them, and that's why I called some of the guys, the specific reporters, to come on the show with me. And I was like, why? This is our first win. Like this is a happy time. Like, don't print this, what they're doing. And they were all like, hey, we have to. They're telling us this. I don't print it, somebody else's. And that's what started their whole issue. And somebody thinks, it was said, not by me, but somebody thinks or said somewhere that Gilbert came to you and told you not to play Kwame. And I was like, I didn't hear nothing about that. So let's go straight to it. You know what I mean? Did Gilbert ever come to you and tell you not to play Kwame?
Never. There
Never.
was no player that I've coached that came to me on any team, on any level, to tell me who to play or who not to play. And
Hey,
Gilbert did not come
that's
to
what I
me and
thought.
say, now Gilbert might have come and just rambled at times, but he never said, don't play Kwame. Now, was that the series Kwame just stopped playing?
Yeah. So that was when he stopped going to, and if you remember, this was the only time where me and you got into an argument. The whole time we played, we never argued because it was when, and I was really more advocating for Kwame, if you remember. And I was like, well, give him a chance. You know, he's all right. He's just frustrated with this. And he was like, no. You were like, no. He skipped practice. He can't just skip practice. I was like, I feel you. I got you, but just give him a minute. And I went and called him and everything like that. And I was going, and it was when Ernie was like, you know, we don't need him on the team. And
well,
like,
this is what happened, Tom. Let me tell you what happened. Kwame, Ernie, he missed practice. Ernie met with Kwame and then called me up and says, let's meet Kwame in your office. So me, Ernie, Kwame come in. I think Steve Shepard, not Steve Shepard. Shepard might have been there too. But Kwame, Tommy Shepard. Kwame sat there and said, is that the year he broke somebody's window and had scars on his arm?
It might have been something like that.
So he sits there and Ernie says, well, do you want to be here on the team? Kwame said no. He did not want to play anymore. So that's how that went. He admitted that he did not want to play. It was in front of me and Ernie and maybe Tommy Shepard. But that was that meeting. And we said, hey, he doesn't want to play. His heart's that even if we try to convince him to play, to be on the team, his heart wasn't in it. For some reason, his heart wasn't in it. He admitted to us he did not want to play anymore on our team.
See, so, I remember him being so mad at Gilbert that
I didn't know why. I just thought he just
it was because he thought that Gilbert came to you and said, do not play Kwame anymore.
No, I would never. You think I would listen to Gilbert?
I hear you, but that was the thought, and he was so mad. He was like, if I come to practice, I'm going to knock Gilbert out, and that's going to be bad for me. So I will stay away. And I wish he would have explained all that back then, because that was the reason why he said I should not come in right now, or I should not be around the team right now, because I will go beeline right to Gilbert, because he was so mad. And I don't know if his agent told him, somebody told him that. I don't know how that, because some reason Gilbert thought that I told him that because he knew that we was tight. And I was like, I didn't never say that. I was like, my issue was with the media. And I said how the media was egging it on, and I even talked to the media. But I don't know nothing about the other stuff. But that was the reason why he wanted to stay away and why he didn't come to practice that day. I just don't think he ever explained that.
He really never expressed his thoughts to us. He just sat there and said, I just don't feel like playing anymore. I mean, just bluntly and flatly, I just don't want to play anymore. And that's it. And we just, to me, it was no trying to convince him, because we were at such a important time at the time, and we had something going. I got enough players here. I got you and Brendan and everybody else, in that position. So that's why he didn't play. And I stopped listening to them go back and forth at each other. But I listened to them about a year. It's
a lot.
Yeah, it's gotten to a point where it wasn't even funny.
And the thing is, I agree. And the thing is, it's like, I don't know. And even when I sat down and talked with the reporters and told, everything, I was like, I don't know if any of this even matters now at the point where they are. I don't think if they even care how it first started. And it wasn't that, you know what I mean? They've gone so far beyond. Yeah, I don't know if there's any coming back from it. They're talking about each other's families and their, you know what I mean? They're doing with their, I'm like, that's, and I hope, and this is, you know what I mean? Because I know Kwame's my man. You know what I mean? When Kwame went off on everybody that time when he was mad at, he was like, F you, F you, F you. And he was like, Tom Thomas, you cool with me. But F you, and it was so crazy because so many people started calling me like, yo, what's up with Kwame? And why is he cool with you? And but he went off on everybody. But I was there for the whole time from when he first got to the Wizards, and I saw how it was really like him against the world. Like
this frustration just built just over years, over months, and years.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get to that performance level that everybody expected him to get to.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was frustrating for him. And it's a lot, first pick in the draft, you're 7 foot, you got a body of a Greek god.
Right.
And your performance level isn't what people expected it to be.
Right.
So, and look, it wasn't because he didn't give effort. He gave great effort. Kwame would work hard.
Yeah.
He was physical. And he knew that, he had to be that sort of player, an explosive, physical, dynamic player. And he tried. He gave great effort. Yeah. There was just, some things that just didn't work well for him. That's all.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. But, I mean, he wasn't, I hate when people keep saying he was a bust. I mean, Kwame played 13, 14 years in the league. That's not a bust.
He sure did.
You can't. I have these arguments with people so many times, and I hear them talking. I'm like, you don't even know what you're talking about. And again, it makes me mad sometimes because people speak with such, you know what I mean? Like, certainty, like they just, I'm like, you have no idea. You're just talking. But it's but another thing that I did say on that podcast that got a lot of people's attention in that discussion with the different reporters. A lot of people came up to me about the Javaris Crittenton situation with Gilbert, especially after the Netflix documentary came out. I don't know if you saw it. Did you see it?
I watched it. Yeah, shooting goal.
Yeah, that was a tough watch too. But and there was a lot of different problems that I had with it because I felt that they didn't tell the whole story. There's a whole lot more to it that they could have told, and they didn't show all the positive stuff that Javaris has been doing since, and like how he worked with the family and helped the family, and what he's doing now with young people and the stuff he's doing with AAU, and they didn't show the redemption story. And I just felt that if they were going to tell the story, they had to tell the complete part, but they were focused so much on, you know what I mean, Gilbert, and he did this, and then he did that. I'm like, okay, you talked about that. I'll move on past that. But that's what drew the people, and I get it. But I made a statement during that podcast, and it got a lot of people's attention, and they didn't understand what I was saying. You'll understand more what I was saying. I said that the person that I know deserves the majority of the blame, not all the blame, but the majority of the blame for that happening that they didn't show in the Netflix documentary was Ernie Grunfeld. And I said because the reason why is Ernie let Gilbert do whatever he wanted to do from the time he got to the Wizards, and it just got worse and worse and worse. It's like, and Gilbert was incredible. He if that never happened, he'd probably be a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? But at that time, Gilbert didn't have the personality that you could just say you can do whatever you want to do. He needed structure. He needed discipline. He needed rules. And you would attempt to make rules, and if he wouldn't do something, you would find him, and then Ernie Grunfeld would give him his money back. Like, it was like, I remember I would see Gilbert come into the gym, and he would be in there early in the morning, working out, everything like that. Mm-hmm. Then he would leave and then be late for practice. And I was like, you late when you done already worked out for 2 hours, but you didn't want nobody to know that you was working out. You know what I mean? But I was like, what you doing? But it was almost like he wanted to do things to prove a point that he could. And you know what I mean? And then Ernie, like supported him with anything. He never told Gilbert no. So there was a lot of things that happened before that gun incident that would blow people's minds that Gilbert did. And Ernie okayed all of it, had no issues with any of it, and it just got worse and worse. That's my opinion. You can tell me if you think I'm wrong.
Antoine. So when I told you I saw Antoine at a game, because I was actually scouting for St. John's. I was doing a little scouting, not scouting officially, but assistant coach at St. John's asked me to watch this kid, which lives about 15 minutes from me.
Okay.
That's when I go to the game, and this kid I'm watching, his school's playing against Antoine's son's school. So that's why I got to see Antoine watching his son play. And Antoine and I sitting up there watching the game, and Antoine turned to me and said exactly what you said. He said, "You know how good we could have been if Ernie didn't let Gilbert get away with a lot of that stuff." He just said that right out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Antoine wanted me to say this, but it's all in the past. But it's the honest truth. But
Mm-hmm.
he said it was a great statement. He said, "You know how good we could have been if Ernie didn't let Gilbert get away with everything, the fines, not paying this, not paying that." And I said this. I had a line with Mr. Poland. I had a direct line with Mr. Poland,
Mm-hmm.
and I said to Mr. Poland, "We're going to be disciplined." And look, Gilbert has his ways, and I always said this. I even drew this on the whiteboard in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember this. I said, if you have a regular road, a highway,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a middle line that tells you which side to be on, the middle of the road.
Mm-hmm.
I said, now to go down the road, some of us walk this straight line down the road. Some of us wiggle a little bit out of the straight line. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the road has a border on each side.
I
And
remember
once
that.
you go outside that border,
Yep.
that's when I get on you and there's going to be consequences. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you be yourself within this road where we're going, every
Mm-hmm.
individual. And so I don't know if you remember this. The one time Gilbert did about 2 or 3 things in a row that I said, okay, I got discipline really good now. So I said, Gilbert, you're not starting tonight.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
So, and he got all pissed off and sit by his locker. He was this and that. But it wasn't like he didn't play. He didn't start. So what's happening in karma? Karma is kind of real to
Mm-hmm.
me. I believe in karma. So and I didn't wish. No one wishes anything bad. But Gilbert goes in the game, and that's the night he got his knee hurt. He went in there. He's blocking out with the kid from Charlotte that jumps real high.
I
Crash.
know
He
you're
called
talking
him a crash
about
up. Yeah, blocking him out unless he was coming in for a layup.
Gerald Wallace. Gerald Wallace.
Yeah. So he turned and blocked, face up, and the guy fell on his knee.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it was like, it's a very unfortunate incident. But that was the downfall of his health problems. But he added on to that instead of doing what the doctors told him to do.
Yeah.
This is the timeline for your knee to be 100% at this time. This is the stages you have to go through. Gilbert skipped like the first 4 stages and went right to running with a parachute on the track, playing basketball on asphalt in summer league games. So he skipped. Again, he was what made him great, made him bad. Is what I used to say about players. He was great because of his arrogance and his ego and his confidence and his ability. So in the end, that hurt him because he thought he could do it on his own without the doctors, without following these rules. And his knee never got healthy.
Yeah, I remember
right from the beginning.
Yeah, I remember that. Now, and was that the game where he said, "I'm not going to shoot"?
No.
Okay,
No, he did that. He did that once. He did that in the Garden, and he shot in the 4th quarter. We won.
Right, but he didn't shoot the whole 3 quarters. Like he just didn't shoot the ball at all.
Didn't shoot the whole 3 quarters. And I remember Gilbert said he didn't make the Olympic team, and he says, "I'm giving 50 points to everybody involved with the Olympic team.
I remember that.
I'm gonna score 50 against all you guys." But okay. So he goes to LA, and I think he gets 62 or 64 in LA.
Against Kobe, right?
Against Kobe. We win. We go to Phoenix, and Mike
D'Antoni. That's where he did the bow afterwards.
Oh, in LA.
Yeah, in LA. I remember that. Yeah.
And the next night, we go to Phoenix, and he scores 54. We beat them in overtime, Steve Nash and those guys, because D'Antoni because D'Antoni was part of it.
Right.
And then we played. I can't remember who we played. Maybe wherever Jared Jack was on, whatever team he was on at the time.
Okay.
Jared Jack. I don't know if it was Portland or Memphis, or I can't remember. But I don't know. I don't know who was on that team that was affiliated with the Olympics.
Okay.
But that was a target team, as I say, a target team. So he only scored 9 points. And the media goes to Gilbert, says, "Why did you only scored 9? What was the problem?" He said, "Well, the coach emphasized defense all week." And I'm like, well, and so the media said to me in my media presser after the game, this is what Gilbert said, he didn't score 9 because of you emphasizing defense all week. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to even address that. Next question.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So a couple of 2 or 3 more questions. So it comes back to me another way. Gilbert only scored 9 points. And I said, look, that's stupid, right? I just had enough. I said, that's stupid. The front office, you know what I'm talking about, wants us to concentrate and emphasize defense. So that's what we did. We emphasized defense for the last 3 or 4 days in practice. The emphasis was on defense. And so they go back and tell Ernie in the hallway, well, coach said that was stupid, what Gilbert said.
I remember that. I remember.
Ernie, instead of, look, Ernie was the one that says, we got to emphasize defense. Let's emphasize defense. Mr. Poland, we got to emphasize defense. Blah, 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 blah. So, okay, we will. So Ernie tells the press, well, and they said, what do you have to say about that, Ernie? Ernie says, well, defense, Gilbert scores a lot of points for us and will continue to score a lot of points for us. Instead of saying, well, yes, we want to emphasize defense. Coach is right, you know, and coach did the right thing. Instead of supporting what his message was, he goes to Gilbert and says, well, Gilbert scores a lot of points for us and will continue to score a lot of points for us. And I'm like, you know what? It is what it is.
But that's where we went with our conversation with the media people. And I talked about the media's role in a lot of these issues that happens on teams.
Yeah.
So that's a prime example. What you just gave, the media specifically went to him and said that literally in the hallway, you know what I mean, to get a certain response, and they did that. And it was so, you know, when I talk to my kids now, you know, my son's playing at University.
I know your son's playing.
And I talk to them all the time about how the media tries to set athletes up and create risks and do it because they want stories. And I made references to different stuff that happened with us. So even in, you know, we talked about, you know, what happened with Gilbert and Kwame, and I literally watched them start the whole beef and everything like that. You know, with you and Ernie. We didn't even talk about that with me and Brendan. Like it was interesting because there's a few things I want to ask you about this though. But first part, let me make this point.
Yeah.
That one season, they kept saying, well, who's going to be the starting center? And every time they came to me, you know, well, you do this and you do this. You know, Brendan said this. Do you have any response? I was like, no, I don't have no response to that. It'll be what coach wants. And then they go to Brendan, well, this and this and this, you know, and then they started almost creating the narrative. I don't know if they created it or Brendan created it, that you don't like Brendan. And this was after I won the starting spot. So let me see if you remember this though. Okay, you brought us both into because I hear Brendan tell this story over the years, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not how it happened. That's not why it happened. So okay, you came. It was training camp. All right.
Yeah.
So training camp started. It was the competition between me and Brendan who was going to start that year. Okay.
Right.
The first of training camp, you started him with the first team. So he played the whole training camp through the first team. Now that I felt was kind of like, you know, a little bit more towards him because he was playing with the first team the whole time. So of course he's going to look better because he's playing with the first team. Then when the preseason started, he played so however many games we played, we had 6 games with preseason. He played the first 3 with the with the first team, right?
Yeah.
And then I played the last 3 with the first team, right? You remember all this?
Yeah.
So then, you know, and I played well those 3 games. So then afterwards, you were like, okay, I really like how the offense ran with you. I really like, and you talked to all the different players. You talked to, it was whoever's Kron. It was, I think you talked to everybody, Gil.
Yep.
And
Derek.
Yep, everybody. You talked to all the different players, and they all agreed with you. You know what I mean? They were like, "Yo, look at how it's moving, how everything like that." Then and I was scoring, but I was scoring out of the offense. I was getting and the one thing that you wanted, I remember, and I was telling my son this just the other day. You wanted the big man, and I'm not. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it's because they didn't play his defense as well. I'll say that. You don't have to say, but I said that. But you wanted the big man to come when the ball was reversed. You wanted the 5 to come all the way over here and meet the person if they got beat by the baseline.
Before the restricted circle, yeah.
Yes. So in the previous administration, which was Doug Collins, he would have the person bump down and it not be this 5-man's rotation. So Brendan was resistant to that. He was like, no, that's not my rotation. He's supposed to do that. Now, I remember hearing him say that. I'm like, that was under Doug Collins. We're not under his rules no more. But okay, do your thing. But I came all the way over. So my son would ask me, he was like, yeah, but wouldn't that put you in a bad position sometimes? I was like, of course it did. So sometimes I would get dunked on. I remember one time rotating over, LeBron was already up in the air. I tried to do my best, and LeBron carried me to the rim and dunked it. But I remember you said, he was like, that was a good rotation. And I was like, I just got dunked. I'm thinking I just got dunked on, coach. But that's what you wanted, so that's what I did. I didn't question it. I didn't, fight against you. I just did it, right?
Right.
So after that, after the preseason was over, you brought us into offense, me and Brendan, and you said, okay, all right, so Brendan, you had the better training camp, but even though it was a lot of because he was on the first team the whole training camp, and it didn't mean like he outplayed me, but it was just he was on the first team, so it looked better. So you had the better training camp. You had the better beginning part of preseason, which was also the time when he was with the first team. He's like, but the time finished up stronger at the end of the preseason. And then he just went off and was like, well, that's 2 out of 3. If I got 2 out of 3, then that means I'm 2 better. And he was like, oh, yeah. And he went out. And I'm sitting there looking at him like, are you seriously acting like this? Like, because we had been there the previous 2 years under Doug Collins, and he was playing more than me because he worked better for Doug Collins' system, and I like that. You know what I mean? Because we was on the team, like we would kick it. I used to carpool with him. We was all cool. But then at that point, he threw a whole tantrum and stormed out. If you remember,
I wonder why. Do you know why?
I don't know why. He thought, and this is what I've heard him say, and this is one thing I wanted to ask you. He would say, and he would tell us, I've heard him say it a few times, that you flew down to wherever he lived. I guess maybe it was Charlotte, right? Charlotte.
Me and Randy Ayers.
And Randy, okay, I don't remember Randy Ayers' part, and promised him that he was going to be the starting center. And you went back on your word. And I was like, well, he didn't. I'm told, I was like, well, he didn't promise me anything. He said for me that you'll have the opportunity to compete. And that's all I asked for. And you said you have the opportunity to compete. He was like, and whoever is better at that position and runs things the way that I want them to be ran and is more effective, that's the person who will be playing more. That's what you told me.
So let me just say this. I needed scoring off the bench. That's priority number 1 for me. I didn't care who. I shouldn't say that. I felt our team was better with you coming off the bench, with your force. Your force was what we needed after the first 6 minutes of the game. After the first 6-7 minutes, we needed you to come in. That was the whole premise of Brendan starting. Whether I came down to Charlotte, I didn't promise him he would start. It was to repair this line, this saying that I said about him at the end of the year. I don't know if you ever remember that, but
I don't
remember.
Brendan,
well, the thing was there was Brendan was playing not so great for a little while, and then and Ernie and the assistant coaches, and we kept talking about how we're going to get Brendan to play better. And then Brendan started playing better, right, for a little while, for maybe another, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, right? Not even that long, maybe 3 or 4 games.
Okay.
So there was a media after the game, after his like the fourth or fifth really good game in a row. The media says, "Well, how do you get Brendan? Why is Brendan playing so well?" So my mind was, there's an old African saying that it takes a village to raise a child. I don't know if you remember that.
I
And I
remember.
said that. I
Okay.
said that. I said that. And it was probably the wrong thing to say, but I said it because I'm thinking I'm gonna give everybody credit here, not me. I didn't make. Ernie talks to him. The assistant coach was worked with him. We had somebody else talking to him, so everybody was involved in giving Brendan a lot of confidence and saying you are this, you're important, and all that. And that was my first thing came to my mind was, well, it takes a village to raise a child, meaning everybody was here. Not to call Brendan a child, but
Oh, he took
everybody was
offense to
involved.
that. I
He
kind of
took
remember.
it. His mother took offense to it also. His
Oh,
mother called and got people involved. And look, I get it. Again, I get it. I said the wrong thing as far as calling him a child. But it was wrong. It was the right analogy, but I shouldn't have said it.
I got you. I got what you're saying.
So our relationship was really tainted after that. And his mother had a problem with me saying it, and even Ernie had a problem. So everybody had a problem with me trying to give everybody credit.
Okay, I
So,
got you.
so it was recommended. It was suggested to me. Said, why don't you after the season? Why don't you go down and patch things up with Brendan? That's what the trip was for. It's not to come here and tell him he was going to be a starter. It
Okay.
was just to say, hey, look, I said the wrong things, blah, 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 blah. We sat at the restaurant for a couple of hours. That was it. I didn't mean to call you a child. I said the wrong thing. And that was what that trip was for. But there was no question in everybody's mind that if you were the starter, Brendan wasn't a coming off the bench type player for me. He just didn't. I mean, in the offense, you had the back screen, you had the roll back, you were aggressive, you had this force at time that we needed in certain times of the game. And you knew how to run the offense. You were unselfish in every phase of the word. See, selfishness pops up in a lot of people, but you were as unselfish as they came.
Right.
But you were aggressive. You had the jump shot. You kept the defense honest. You had the roll back. You had the drive. You had the post up. You had everything in the game offensively. See, who do we have off the bench? Once we sat Antoine and Karan, or once we sat two of those big three, we needed the offense off the bench.
Right.
Who else was there other than it was you mostly that sparked us? And not just scoring, but just the force that you played with.
No,
and that's what I thought was so important to our team than you starting and you're on the floor with three other big time 20-point scorers. I wanted you to be the 20-point scorer. I wanted you to win your minutes.
I got you.
When you came off the bench, because we had, imagine coming off the bench with Brendan and whoever else we had to take up the scoring load. So that was the thing. That was more important than anything because I'm looking at what's the best success for the team. So yeah, there was no promising minutes. There was no promising starting. It was, hey, I'm not a bad guy to you, Brendan. I don't hate you. So this is funny too. You'll get a kick out of this. So just last week, so Brendan still goes to the Lifetime Fitness. I don't go there anymore because I play golf all the time. I don't have. I work out at home and I go play golf all day. So one of my best buddies that I play golf with goes to the Lifetime Fitness. So he calls me up, said, Eddie, I'm here running the treadmill with Brendan Haywood. And I told him, we were talking, and I told him, yeah, I played golf with Eddie. Me and Eddie play golf all the time. You know what Brendan told him? The first thing he said, oh, coach don't like me.
Yeah, he says it over and over again.
I'm like, so So I called it. So my man says, you say you don't like him. I said, tell Brendan, he was like, those days are over. I never disliked him. I said, Brendan was the unsung hero of our playoff team. Tell him that. So maybe, I don't know. But
But
again,
but
it's
but,
so
but I,
it's so awkward when I run into Tom. It's not awkward, but it's like, hey Brendan, like, I'm good, man. You're good. I'm 70 and
yeah.
you're, whatever. Those you were 20 and I was 40, those forget it.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard him say before that the reason why I was playing was because you didn't like him, and I was like, no, that's not what it was. And then I heard Gilbert repeat that on his pod. I was like, no, that's not what happened at
That's not
all.
true. It's not true at all.
So
I like the way we played with him as a starter and with you as a scoring force coming off the bench. And again, not just scoring, but just the way you played. We wanted to continue that aggressive like mindset and the way of style of playing.
but then after that preseason, you switched it and you were starting me.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so and
because
that's when he got really upset. And that's the part where I went to, I didn't handle the situation the best I could have, but he went to the media, or his agent went to the media, or whoever went to the media, and they were making
his
the
agent,
case that he was
yeah,
being done unfairly, and you were taking out on him because and putting personal feelings inside, putting into the situation of why I was starting, because that's the only, and I took offense. I was like, wait a minute. You think the only reason why I'm starting is because he don't like you, and why does you? And so I took offense to that, and so
yeah,
that's what I came to practice. I didn't get
yeah.
it. I punched him, but I gave him the opportunity to say something. Like, I came to the practice and I was like, hey, this is what I see. What is this bull that you're doing in the papers? Like, say in the paper, you think that I was like, come on, man, we don't. I didn't spend 2 years under a different administration where you played more. So now you're gonna throw a hissy fit because I'm playing more? Like, what kind of? And I had like his response, and then
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's
It
always
might have been it
like,
might have been agent driven because I kind of know his agent from before I got to the Wizards, and his agent had some things that he thought were the right thing for the team. But I told my first head coaching job in Sacramento, I said, look, guys are agents who have opinions. I don't talk to agents, and that was my thing. I never talked to agents as I was a coach. I think they might do it now. I think a lot of that's happening now. But
yeah.
it was about what's the best I can get out of this team, and how can we formulate the system and rotate the guys in that's going to help us win as many games we can win. That's it. It wasn't
So
about again. I've seen some things in practice that. Hey, I remember the one time we needed to really dig down on defense. I started Michael Ruffin and Michael Ruffin and oh gosh, can't remember his name. Oh, just was a GM for the Minnesota.
Calvin Booth.
Oh, Calvin Booth. It just yeah.
Yeah.
So I started Ruffin and Booth instead of Antoine and Karan, I think, or Antoine and Brendan. I think
Yeah.
that's how it happened.
That
In
was towards
Atlanta, we go
yeah.
to Atlanta,
No, I
huh?
remember that. That
Yeah,
was
we
when
go to it.
that was when
We go to Atlanta and we
they go.
win. And Antoine scores he scores a bucket to tie us in regulation.
Yeah.
And Antoine comes to the bench and he was still pissed off at not starting. He knocked some things over on this press table. I said, you know what? I don't give a I don't give a care because this is about winning the game.
Right.
And we won the game. But then the next game I started them back.
Yeah.
Whoever it was. I can't. Maybe it was Calvin Booth for Brendan, and it was Michael Ruffin for Antoine.
It was interesting, and my thing. The reason why I even got into the media is to combat a lot of the stuff that I didn't like seeing in the media. That was
Yeah.
really my motivation to get to start doing different things. And I remember after everything that you're saying. I remember that part because I remember what was written in the papers about it. I remember how they were trying to, he made a questionable decision not to start, but then he made the game winning, and there was, that's just the way the media does. And I didn't see it back then, but now removed, looking back on it, a lot of these issues that was going on, I really do blame the media for a lot of them, just because the way. I mean, when I got into the fight with Brendan, it was because of what I saw in the media. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then even the way that I remember, it was Ivan Carter. Even the way that Ivan Carter wrote about the fight, he added all this different stuff. I was like, wait a minute, that didn't happen. Like, are you going to make the story juicier? that didn't even happen. You know, I mean, he said one part. He said, like, Brendan body slammed me. You know, Brendan ain't body slamming nobody. You know what I mean? Brendan's my man, but he ain't about to pick nobody up. You know what I mean? And it's
this is true.
and so, like, even the parts when I would see Brendan telling the story, I was like, wait a minute, you're leaving key parts out. You don't tell the part where you grabbed my hair and wouldn't let go, so I couldn't hit you. You don't ever tell that part. You know what I mean? You skip over that.
Right.
And then, but it's just it's my issue with the media, and that's what I was challenging them on. Is, when the media wants to create, and now that there's social media, it's even worse.
Yeah,
but the media likes to create rifts, and I think it happens so much. Like, first of all, I'm glad we didn't have social. Could you imagine Gilbert if he had his own social media back then when we were playing? That I think that would have been horrible.
Out of control. It would have
absolutely been horrible. But yeah, just to the point. Even now, I hear people repeating that you had this dislike for Brendan, and it affected how you coached and who you played. And I'm like, that's not what happened.
Let me just say this. I just like when you don't come over and try to block a shot. I just like a guard, whoever it was, not trying to get in front of somebody for take a charge on the dribble. Or somebody, Brendan, or you, or whoever it is. There's a lot of things I just like if you're not doing it right and you know what to do, or you don't want to do it because you got 2 fouls and you don't want to come over and rotate. There's some things I dislike, but I've never disliked the person.
Yeah.
And I've never disliked the player. I dislike that play. I dislike what just happened. I mean, that's coaching. And that should be players too. Your teammates should say, hey man, I don't like what you just did right there because that's not the right thing to do. So maybe he took that concept into his personal life. Like, Brendan, you gotta come over there and block that damn shot, or at least change that shot. Maybe he sat down and said, shit, coach don't like me. Maybe that's what happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, you were strong enough to know that this is a business and this is my job and this is what the communication we're supposed to have. So maybe that's what happened. But again, like my buddy says, he says you don't like him. Hey man, I'm 70 years old. Why would I not like Brendan Haywood? Right. Brendan, so I said, he was one of our unsung heroes of our playoff team. Just does he like me now if I say that? If I said 199 good things about him, and I'd say one thing that he didn't do on the court, does he not like me? So that's what it looked like,
I mean, you got on me. I mean, that's the thing. I was like, I don't even see him getting on you like that. It wasn't like Doug Collins would get on me. It wasn't like that type of a thing. But it's when I tell young people, when I talk, I do a lot of motivational speaking still, and talking to them, when they ask me questions like, when they bring up, what if a coach doesn't like you? I was like, I don't think coaches play people according to who they like. They play people according to who they think will help them win
the game. You're right.
I was like, you don't think that coaches play people who they don't like personally, but they can help them win? I was like, that happens all the time. And I talk about how when you first came there and you said, you sat all of us down. It was me, Brendan, and Jihadi. I want to say it was one more person. I can't think of who the other person was. You said, I want you guys to do this. Catch the ball at the top of the key. You dribble. You told us the offense and how it worked and everything. I had never done that before. That wasn't something that I did at Syracuse. That wasn't something I did. But I said, okay, this is what he wants. This is what I'm going to give him. So I started practicing dribbling right hand, dribbling left hand. You know what I mean? Doing the handoff, and then diving hard, turning and sealing. Or fake handoff if the person jumps up and be able to see that they're jumping up, and then fake handoff and then be able to make a play and not run the person over if they come over and help. Or to be able to, all the different things that you said that you wanted, I made sure that I did those things. You know what I mean? If you want me to come all the way from over here, and not get on whoever that guy is that let the guy go baseline, but you want me to come and help, you know what I mean? To like save him from getting beat baseline. Okay, I have to do that. So I got to either take a charge, make a play on the ball, or something like that,
or foul him, you know,
or foul him. Right? Sometimes foul, or sometimes I would get dunked on. I got dunked on by Vince Carter doing that. I got by LeBron. I think Tracy McGrady got me. You know what I mean? But that's what you wanted, so that's what I did. And I tell young players, you have to find out what the coach wants. Not what you want to do, you know what I mean? But what the coach wants you to do. And when you find out what the coach wants you to do and do it, whether he likes you or not, or how he feels about you, or if he agrees with your political opinion, you know, that's my political opinion or whatever it is, he's going to play you because you're doing what he wants.
A perfect example of time was when we beat Chicago in the first round. We came up with the zone defense that would push you or Brendan out to a corner.
Yep.
And that was something that the way this was formulated, if they did this, if they made one specific type of pass, it would throw us out of a normal zone sink. If they made that pass, and you or Brendan would have to now make an abnormal zone slide to the corner. Yep. We called it sharp. It was so instrumental for us to win that series. It was huge, and they figured it out maybe with I don't know, 7 minutes to go, and I said, shit, they figured it out. They know how to beat our zone. Excuse me, but it was too late. But again, that series, I was so proud of what we did because all year Chicago had the #1 defense, right? And everybody raving about what's the coach for Chicago at the time?
Was it Skiles?
Scott Skiles. Everybody raving about him, defensive coach, and this and that, and blah blah blah. But they couldn't. But in our playoff series, our defense was better than theirs.
Yep. And
the other thing was what made us good was we decided to put Jarrett at 2. And remember, Jarrett started at 2, not that series, but that year. That was so big for us, for Jarrett to be. It was Gilbert, Jarrett, and because Ernie wanted me to put Karan at 2 and keep Jarrett at 3. I said no. And the offense, Gilbert's going to be the guard that's going to score,
right? And
Karan and Antoine are the forwards. The forwards score equally, but the guard, I don't want Jarrett. I should say this. I didn't want Karan to not be a guard. First of all, Jarrett defensively on their guard was big for us. I mean, his 6'10" on a shooting guard was big, and Karan could just play his own forward, So we were good that year because of a number of reasons. But I remember the last play when we beat Chicago. All series we were switching out. Excuse me. We were switching out on their side out of bounds play. Bump up, they would zipper up. We would switch out and take it away. But their last play, in the huddle, we said, we're not going to switch this time. We're going to stay with our man.
Yep.
And so Jarrett didn't switch, and he stayed out with his man. They threw it over top thinking we were switching. Jarrett stole the ball and got the layup, which was like the biggest play other than Gilbert's shot. I think Gilbert shot in Chicago, and that play that Jarrett made. Those Brendan and Jarrett would call themselves what? The little two.
The little two.
Because we had the big 3. We had the first big 3, and they were the little 2. But
so that when he was playing, his issue was that he would start, but he would only play in the first and the third. Remember, he kept talking about the first and the third.
Jarrett?
No, Brendan. He would say the first and the third. So he would say just the first and the third. That's all you ever need me is a little bit in the first, a little bit in the third. And then I would play the majority of the minutes from, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the game. But I remember them saying the big 3 and little 2. But but I still go back to that the strategies that you just discussed and juggling everything that you were juggling. is evidence to me of why you should be coaching right now. You know, I see coaches, you know, and I'm not going to name anybody's particular, but you're looking at it, you're like, what is the scheme here? Like, what are they even doing? Like, what is the identity? Like, what is, you know what I mean? And you don't see, at least you saw an identity, you saw a structure of what we were doing. And what I look at sometimes, I'm like, they look like they just running around playing AAU pickup ball.
And pick and roll, high pick and roll. Well, what people do, they run chin. They run a version of chin. A lot, maybe, how many teams in the league? 30?
Yeah.
Maybe 29 and a half of them run chin.
Yeah, that's funny.
They do. They run off the top of the center. He comes up, he rolls, everybody rolls. But we already had it. We did it. Golden State Warriors runs our offense totally from years ago. They run low post split game.
Yep.
They run basic pick away.
Yep.
They run. I see it, and that wasn't happening before. You know. So anyway.
It definitely wasn't. So let me ask you this. This last question, I'll let you go. I know I kept you probably over.
No, I have nothing to do until
I chilling, right?
At 2:00.
Would you still leave the door open if a coaching opportunity did come and there was some interest, even if it's as an assistant or whatever? You know, would you still leave that door open for NBA or college?
I would do it from a consultant role. Yeah, my wife and I have such a great time together. We play golf together. I don't want to be leaving for road trips for a week or every other 10 days going somewhere. Or being practice every day, you know, or be in the office for 6 hours. Life is a lot better right now the way it is. But I would certainly do a consultant role, or I would train somebody in the off season here in Charlotte. I would do that, but not the regular grind. No.
Okay.
So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
No, that answers it. I get it. Yeah. I still think you should be coaching though, but hey, I definitely get it. Well, it was, you know,
it's always good to think about though. My mind is open.
Your mind is open though. It's open.
Mind is open. Yeah.
So the door is not all the way closed.
Not all the way closed.
Okay, cool. All right, that's cool. So that's good to hear.
You're the one that got the foot in the door from being closed, only because of you. I would not close the door.
Okay, that's cool. I'll take that, Coach. No, but it was. Hey, listen, it was great. You know, the years that you coached me. You know, I learned a lot from you. You know, and you know, even leading up to when I had open heart surgery. You know, and that. You know, that year, of course. And I just saw Dr. Telesnik a few days ago.
You did? That's my doctor too.
So I still go and get check up from him. So he loves reminiscing and he talks very highly of you and, you know, the whole everything that he goes back to, you know, when he's detected it and saw that I was going to need, you know, he tells me the whole story every single year, but you know, it's all good. But
he saved me. Probably saved my life too. I only have one card in my billfold, my secondary billfold, and that's Dr. Telesnik.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
I didn't know he saved your life too. What?
Oh yeah, I had a blood clot in my leg. Remember,
that's right.
I missed a week. I missed a week. Yeah.
I remember that.
A blood clot, and I stayed in the hospital for a week. He was my doctor, and then 2 years later, I had another one in my right leg.
I remember that.
So he's my man. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great, and he's one of the doctors that really he goes the extra step, and he tells you. I mean, because he told me, he said, "Listen, get all the opinions that you need, second opinion, third opinion, fourth opinion." He's like, "But listen, I'm telling you." He's like, not that they're going to, and they didn't, not the Wizards didn't, but he's like, but if anything comes up with you signing a waiver and going ahead and playing this year, I will quit. And he said, surgery. And he was like, I was like, yeah, but I just solidified the starting role, and I'm playing good, and I'm in the best shape that I've been in. I'm trained all summer. You know what I mean? Worked out with it was Jeff Rosga, you know, and I'm ready to go. You know, he was like, listen, it's not worth it. He was like, I understand all that, but you have a lot more life to live after this. It's not worth it. And that's the honest conversation that he had with me. You know what I mean? Because if you remember, I saw the one doctor, and the doctor said I might be okay to play. And I flew down to training camp. And I said, okay, one doctor said I might be okay to play. And Dr. Zalesnik, he looked me in the eyes. He was like, listen, I hear what he's saying about might be and possibly. He's like, it's not worth the risk.
Yeah.
And he was, the worst case scenario is this. He's like, and you don't want to have any. And he just brought me back down to earth. And I was, of course, devastated. But I appreciated the way that you, spoke to me as a human being, not as an asset.
Right.
And there
was no way I was going to lose you. No way.
Yeah, and to be quite honest, some of the conversations with like Ernie or with Milt, I'm not going to speak bad of him, but I didn't really. A lot changed with Milt because then he started speaking like Ernie would speak, and he said,
"Correct, yes."
You know what I mean? And I was like, "Oh, you're one of them. You're not one of us." So that's a whole different issue. But you always spoke to me as a human being, and I just really always appreciated that. So. Listen, I want to tell you, thanks for coming on the rematch. Thanks for everything you've done. I'm glad the door is not all the way closed.
Not all the way closed. Your foot is in it. Stop
my foot. Okay, cool. Sounds good. So we'll say hi to all the family, the kids. How old is Jackson now?
Jackson's 27 now.
Oh, 27 years old.
I will see him. I will see him tomorrow. Actually, I'm going to Rutgers as honoring it's 50 years of our Final Four team, of our undefeated season. So it's 50 years this weekend. They're going to honor us at the football game against Oregon. They're like number 3 in the country. Well, they got beat last week.
That's great. Well, definitely tell him I said hi.
I will see him and tell him that.
All right. Appreciate it, Coach. Good to see you.
Tom. All right. Good luck, man. All right. See you.